Good evening. This is Karen with Karen's Cards and More, and welcome and thank you for joining me for another Stamp and Share. Tonight we're going to, I've got an echo, there. Tonight we're going to be making this card. We're continuing this month. We've been featuring the Love of Leaves stamp set and coordinating die set, and we're going to continue in that vein and make this card tonight. You know, some cards, I'm an independent Stampin' Up. If this is your first time joining me, I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. And Stampin' Up has beautiful stamp sets and coordinating die sets, and they're just beautiful. So sometimes we'll do cards that feature the versatility and the beauty of the stamp sets, and other times we just want to focus on the dies. And tonight's project gives us a good use of both, so we get to play with both, and that's what I like about tonight's card. It's a really quick and easy card that has some really neat effects, and especially for this time of year, it's just a beautiful card. So let's talk about the products that you'll be using for this card. So I'm going to be using stamps from the Love of Leaves stamp set, and then I'm also going to be using dies, the coordinating die set, which is called, let me check, I believe it's Stitched Leaves, but I keep it in the same case because, yeah, Stitched Leaves dies. So we're also going to be using those. If I can get this back in here. So that's what we're going to be using. That's the set that we're going to be featuring tonight. For the inks, we're going to be using black memento, but then just pull out your greens. What do you have in the way of greens? I'm going to be using seafoam green, soft seafoam, old olive, garden green, and evening evergreen. And you could use any shades of green that you have. So if you don't have one of these specific ones, just pull out the greens that you have and that will work. We just want a splash of greens. The card base is Granny Apple Green, and it's 11 by 4 1/4, scored at 5 1/2. Then I'm using, for the mat, I'm using a piece of Designer Series paper, and this is 4 by 5 1/4. That's going to be our mat. Then we need a piece of basic white that is 3 3/4 by 5. Then we need another piece of basic white that is 4 by 5 1/4, and this is going to be for the inside. And let me show you the inside of this card, because we're going to decorate it up too. Sometimes we forget the inside of the card, but we're going to decorate it up and still have plenty of room to write a personal message. Okay? And then I also took, and I did this ahead of time. If you're doing this along with me, you can do this real quick. This is really quick and easy to do, but I already have them cut out. I used the garden green and the Granny Apple Green, and I used this die. If you cut it with both pieces, if you use just this piece, you're just going to get the stitched outline. But if you put the insert in it, you're going to get the stitched veining on the leaves, like these that I have die cut here. And so that's what I did for the inside of the card. Now for the outside of the card, we're just going to be using the outline dies. But for the inside, I chose 2 of those. And like I said, if you have different colors of green that you want to use, that's fine too. Those are the ones that I chose. Okay, so let's go. Oh, and I also have just some different size scraps of basic white. That's what we're going to stamp our leaves on, and then we're going to die cut them. So just different size scraps. Okay, so let's get started. Let's go ahead and start our stamping. So we're going to be stamping on the outside, on the basic white piece for the outside, and then we're going to be stamping our leaves that are going to go on the outside. So to start with, I'm just going to, if you notice on the front, it just says thank you, and we just want to keep it in the lower right portion somewhere, because we're going to use one of the dies to do the stitching down the left side, and then we're going to stagger our leaves up the middle. So somewhere in that right bottom corner is where we want to stamp our thank you. And I'm going to bring in a foam mat because these are polymer and I want to be sure to get a good image. And so here's the little thank you. I'm going to bring in the black Memento ink. And just to give you a tip, the polymer stamps, you usually get a better image if you, what I would say, season them. So if you haven't used your stamp before you stamp it for the first time, I usually rub it on my skin. The palm of your hand is a good place. Or stamp with Versamark. Use your Versamark and stamp on some scratch paper, and that usually helps it get seasoned to get a better image for your first stamps. And then I would stamp it on some scrap paper a few times till you know that you're getting a good image. Just a tip to help you with that. So I'm just going to ink this up with the black Memento. And again, I want it somewhere down in the bottom right. And I'm just going to put it there. Okay, so there we have that done. And that's all we're going to do to the front piece right now. Now we're going to go ahead and stamp our various leaves with our various greens. So let's start with the big leaf. And I'm doing that in the, I'm doing it in Old Olive. And again, I just have some scraps of basic white that I'm using for this. And you'll notice that this type of leaf, if you look at it, it's not going to be a solid image. It's meant to be a little sparse in places. That's the way the stamp is created. So don't think it's something wrong with your stamping abilities. It's just the way that the stamp is created. It's made to be that way. If you notice, like I've inked it up and you can still see some light areas, that's because it's made that way. So I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to be die cutting these so it doesn't matter. You're not looking at getting them straight or anything like that because we're going to die cut them. Okay, so there's that. Now we're going to go to the next size leaf, which is this one. And I'm going to do that out of the soft sea foam. And I'm just going to ink this up. And I'm just going to stamp this down. Now, if you use your polymer stamps with certain colors, it may stain, but when you clean the stamp off, just because it has the stained color, you can see some red tints where I've stamped with some red. It's not, you can see there's no red in my leaf here. So as long as you clean them off, you're not going to have any trouble with that. But just to let you know, they might stain, but it doesn't hurt them at all. Okay? So then I'm going to come in with another scrap piece. And I'm going to do this long leaf here. And I'm using Garden Green for that. I'm just going to ink this up. And I'm just going to stamp this down here. Just like that. And then for the final one, we're going to do this little leaf here, and I'm using the Evening Evergreen. And I'm going to stamp that down. There. Now, you may be thinking, well, that doesn't look like the leaves on the front of your card. Let me show you. They have added texture because I used the outline of the die along with the stitched part. I was thinking I just cut the outline, but I did use the stitching, and you can see that it adds a little bit of flair to the leaves, but it doesn't hurt them, and it doesn't hurt the stamping. So we're going to do that part next. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to bring in, I'm going to be using a Cuttlebug. That's the machine that I have. So that's what I'm going to be using. And I'm going to start with our white piece on the front. I'm going to lay that in there. And I'm using this, it almost looks like, I call it my skyline die because it kind of looks like a skyline, but it gives you that stitching look. And I'm just going to put this along my left-hand side. And I'm just, the only thing I'm trying to measure out, I'm trying to leave the same amount of space at the top and the bottom. That's all I'm doing. And then I'm going to run this through. And I'm going to need to turn this around because I got my handle on the other side. So I need to be able to get to my handle. I'm just going to run this through. And take this off. And that's how you get that stitching look down the side of the front. So that's the first die cutting we're going to do. Now we're going to die cut each of our leaves. And you can do these one at a time. You can do these, I have two on the same page. I could cut two at the same time. I like to do them separately just because to make sure they don't move. So I'm just going to line up. It's a little hard to do it. Maybe if I go like this, I can reach it better and see it better. Okay, so I'm just going to line up the outside part of the die. I'll move the middle once I get the outside lined up. And you want to make sure your stem is in the middle of the hole where the stem is. And then you just want to move that middle that stitched portion in the middle. You just want to kind of get it centered. And then I'm going to put this down and run it through. So we've got the first one done. And then we're going to, since we have the other one on that same sheet, we're just going to go ahead and do it. And that's this leaf. So I'm just going to line it up. I'm looking to get my stem in the middle. And then I can line this up. Once I get the outside lined up, then I can work on that. Okay, that looks good. And I'm just going to run this through. Okay. So we have our second leaf done. And if you have, if it ever sticks like that and you have trouble getting it off, just take your pick tool and give it a little nudge. And usually that'll pull it up enough till you can grab hold of it and get it off of your board there. Okay. So we've got that leaf. So now we've got two more to go. So I'm going to come in with the long one. I'm going to do it next. I'm going to put that on there again. I want to make sure my stem is in the window where it needs to be. And then I'm going to put the center in, the stitching. That's going to create my stitching. And just move it around till I get it in the center. Or close to the center. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just the stitching part. And every time I get it set, then I bump it. And you can always use low-tack tape to tape these down, or you can use Post-it notes to hold it in place, whatever works for you. Okay, I think that's got it. I'm going to put my top plate on and run this through. And we've got one more leaf that we need to cut out. And just a heads up, there are two of these dies in the set. One goes one direction, one goes the other. So just make sure you're using the right one that goes the same way as your stamped image. So I'm just going to lay that on there, get that centered. And then I'm ready to die cut this. Okay. I'm ready to move this out of the way. And I don't need my scraps anymore. I'm just going to put my dies back in my folder so they don't get lost. And we're going to bring in all of our pieces. Here's our card front. Right here. This is the inside. We got our leaves here. We've got our little leaves for the inside. And we're ready to start building this. Okay, so let's go to the inside piece, and I'm just going to scoot those over for now because we want to wrap, let me show you again on the inside. We want to wrap some of the twine around this inside piece. So I'm just going to, towards the bottom, I'm just going to run some Stampin' Seal so that I have something to hold into. And I'm just going to push this down into it. Let me look at the other one to know about how high. That looks about right. Okay. And I'm just going to wrap this around. And push it down in the Stampin' Seal on the other side. And I just loop it and then come right back instead of going all the way around because it would waste all of that twine. You could definitely just go all the way across the back. I'm going to pull out my scissors so I can have it trimmed. And I'm just going to, I can trim it up when I get it put in. So I'm just going to pull this, push it around into the Stampin' Seal. And I'll go back here and make sure it's pushed down really well. And then, I don't know if you can see, but this piece of twine has a little burr. So I'm just going to trim that burr, maybe. If I can do it without trimming the whole there. I just trimmed the little burr off. Easy enough to do. Okay, just like that. Now I'm going to come back with my Stampin' Seal and I'm just going to run it all the way around. I'm going to run over those ends of my twine to help hold them down. Just like that. I'm going to bring my card base over. And I'm just going to line this up. Just like that. And press it down. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead because this is going to add a little bulk, this and the bow is going to add a little bulk, I'm going to go ahead and do the outside, but I did want to get this piece with the twine on the inside, okay? So I'm just going to flip it this way, because if this is the inside, then this is going to be my front. So I'm just going to flip it that way so I can work on my front. And I'm going to go ahead and put Stampin' Seal on the back of our basic white piece that's going on the front. This is the one that we did the stitching down the side and stamped thank you on. Okay. And if you get a little bit of the Stampin' Seal past, like I have a little that's sticking out on the bottom of my card, just press it towards the inside of the card and you'll be able to not have that show. So then I'm just going to center this on here. Just like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the Stampin' Seal on the back of this so we can attach it to the card front. Again, I'm going to make sure I'm doing it on the right piece. And again, I'm just going to center this on the card front, just like that. And then we're ready to stagger our leaves. And you can play with this. You don't have to do them in the same order that I did them, however you want to do them. And I just wanted to, I was kind of going for the falling leaf look, and I wanted to vary my dark ones with my lighter ones. So I just played around with it to kind of decide how I like them. But with this bottom one, let me show you on the finished card, I wanted this little looping of the twine to tie it all together with the inside. So for this one, I'm going to put these down with liquid glue, but for this one, I went ahead and put some Stampin' Seal on the back. I want to get some over to this side because I want to wrap this twine. I want to make these loops and I want to have something for it to stick into. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to trim it after I get done. So I don't care if the end sticks out the other side because I'm going to trim it off when I get done. And all I did was make little loops, stick it down in that Stampin' Seal, make another loop, stick it down, and then make another loop and stick it down on the back. I hope I've got this at an angle you can see what I'm doing. I'm just sticking it into that Stampin' Seal that I have on the back. And that's how I got my little loops. So then I just turned it over and you just want to trim these back so the ends aren't sticking out on the other side of the leaf. Okay. Just like that. So that one's ready to go. So I'm going to start with the large leaf that I know that I want in the back. And for this I'm using liquid glue because to me it's just easier to put down with the liquid glue than it is the Stampin' Seal. So I'm going to do that. Okay. So I'm just going to take, here's my silicone mat. I want to put that down first so that if I run off the edge with my glue, it'll be okay. So I'm just going to put and you don't need much glue, just a few dots. And on the stem, I just kind of dot it like that. And when I first squeezed it, there was a glob that came out, so I'm just going to take a paper towel and take some of that up so that it doesn't smash out the sides. And then I'm just going to put this, I want it to be sort of in the center, but I want to keep it towards the top. And so I'm just gluing that down. Okay? And then the next one I'm just going to layer on top of that. So I'm going to come in with my next light, this is the next size-wise, and I know that I want it to go somewhere down in here. Again, just kind of cascading them, going for the falling leaf look. So I'm just going to put some glue on the back of this. I'm just doing some dots of glue on the back of the stem. And I'm going to just put this, you can just kind of play with it and turn it and see how you like it. I think I'm going to go about like that. The only thing we know we don't want to do is cover up our words, but we got plenty of room for that. Then I'm going to come in with this one, and I want it to go across this way. So again, I'm just going to put some glue on the back of it. Same process. Just dotting some glue on the back of the stem. You could use dimensionals on these if you wanted them up, popped up, but I knew because I was layering them that there would be enough dimension already without using dimensionals, so I did not use dimensionals, but you could definitely do that if you wanted to. Now we're going to come in with our piece that has our loops on it, and we're just going to put that on the front, and I'm just going to come in with some liquid glue, and I'm just tapping this. I'm tapping it over top of the twine because I want that twine to be adhered to the card, and I don't want it coming off. So this is going to just go right in here. I'm just pushing that down. Then I'm going to flip this over to the inside. And this is where we're going to attach those other leaves. If I can find where I hid them. Now I know that I just had them because I was just showing them to you. Now isn't that something? This is the fun of doing lives. You never know where your stuff is going to go. Okay, I found them. So I'm going to scoot this up to make sure it's in the camera. And I'm just going to layer these down. And I just wanted them to be kind of crossed like that. You could even put one underneath the twine and one on top of the twine, the stem of it, however you want to do it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the back, making sure that I dot some glue on the stem. And I'm just going to push this down. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the light leaf, the lighter one. And it's just going to go right here. And then I have a bow that I made ahead of time. And you can put the bow on the stems of the leaf. You can put the bow on the, just on the twine. In the one that I already have done, I did it on the twine, but close to the bottom of the leaves. You could just do it however you want to do it. And I think I'm going to do it right about there. And then I can always trim the little legs if I want to. So I'm just going to put a dot of glue. And I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool just to hold that in the glue for just a second so it has a moment to start drying. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to trim the little legs just a little bit. Make sure there's no sticky where I don't want it. If you tap your finger on it and let's say that you do feel some glue, you can take some baby powder. You can take, I have this tool that I think the stuff inside it is baby powder. It smells like baby powder. And you can just run that over it. This will also work, and I just pulled that off. This will also work for your embossing, as your embossing buddy. But you can run this over it and it will take away the sticky. So if you've got glue that's coming out, like if it's coming through that stitching and you feel it's tacky, just run this over it and it removes the sticky and you won't have sticky. And you can get this online. Stampin' Up! Doesn't sell them, but you can buy them online. So then we're ready to just fold this over. And I'm going to use I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to use my there. And we're done. Just like that, we have a really special thank you card that shows that you put some time into it. Who wouldn't love to receive a card like this? Here's the one that I did beforehand. Here's the one that we did tonight. Every time you do one, they're probably going to be a little different because you might tilt things a little different or put them in a little different position. But either way, a beautiful card. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope if you do not have this stamp set and die set that you'll hop on over to my store, karensmith.stampinup.net, and order it. It's the Love of Leaves and the Stitched Leaf die set. Check out my YouTube channel for other videos. Next week, let me show you what we're going to be doing for next week. Next week will be our last week that we're focusing on this stamp and die set. And when I figured the projects for this month, I thought of back to school, so I wanted to do something in honor of back to school. So we're going to be making this pencil box. It holds 5 pencils, and we're going to, again, do some die cutting, and we're going to do some stamping, and we're going to create this little box to put pencils in for that special, maybe a special kid that you have. Maybe if you have a young one. Mine are grown up, so I don't have kids going back to school anymore. I have a son-in-law who's a teacher going back to school. But for that special someone, what a nice way to say have a good day, have a good school year. Just give them a little something extra for their school year. So that's going to be our project for next week. And then for the month of October, we are going to be focusing on the Celebrate Sunflowers stamp set and coordinating die set. So check out my Facebook page, the Facebook group. Either one, you'll see an announcement that shows the projects that we're going to be doing in the month of October. And then November is going to be Christmas oriented. I'll probably do Christmas type projects for November and December. So be sure to check all that out, and I'll be back with you to craft again soon.